Hey, this is Jim. Welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio. Today I have a guest for us. Her name is Honey Woods, and she is a mother of 6. She homeschools, and she's doing it on her own right now. And that's how she pays the bills, is building an online internet-based business. That's right. She's one of the business building warriors in our community who has built an incredible business while homeschooling 6 kids. You're going to be blown away by her story. And what makes this episode especially timely is we dive right into the coronavirus, what effect it's having on her and her family and her business, and how she's processing all of that, as well as we talk about the reality that a lot of families right now are homeschooling, maybe for the first time. The kids are at home. So you're doing life and business on top of kids. And how's all that work? And is it crazy? Is it chaotic? Well, I think after today's episode, you're going to realize just how smooth life can be when you're doing this internet based lifestyle that we talk about on this show all the time, even with all the kids in tow. Her kids are aged 3 to 11. There's 6 of them, and she's doing a fantastic job. The peace that she has, confidence that she has, the ability to grow the business and communicate ideas, just an incredible young lady. And I'm excited to bring her to you. And just so you know, on the timing, this episode's been bumped back a few times now. And I'm glad it was, because here we are right in the middle of March 2020, kind of the chaos of the coronavirus. And no one knows what the world will look like a month or 2 months or 3 months from now. But yet you're going to hang out with a couple of people who are very confident that we know exactly what the future holds, because we know God's in control and He's a good God and He holds our future. And you'll hear us talk about that a little bit today as well. So very unapologetically, maybe slightly more spiritual than you're used to, but this is the time for these kinds of conversations to be happening. And yes, this is a show committed to helping you launch and grow multiple streams of internet-based income. And we are sticking to that core message. But today, when the world's feeling a little bit crazy to so many people, we're going to spend a lot of time talking to, hopefully, to your heart as well as your pocketbook. So God bless you, business building warrior. I'm going to click a couple buttons and get Miss Honey Woods on the line. You're going to really enjoy this episode. Honey Woods, welcome to the show. So good to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
This is an interview I've been looking forward to for a while, and I think the timing is phenomenal. And I'll go into why here in a minute, but I want to just turn the microphone over to you pretty quick and hear some of your story. And I'm still learning about your story, but I know enough to know that I'm very impressed, and I think you're going to motivate a lot of people.
Yeah, I am just so honored to be a part of this. This is awesome. This community has been amazing for my family. We've been selling online now since 2015. Actually started when I had my newborn twins, which I don't recommend. that was a rough start. Twin newborns. Yeah, I'm. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a homeschooling mom of 6 kids. My oldest being 11, so they're all pretty young. We have a busy household, but being able to be in the world of e-commerce has been a huge blessing for our family. Countless ways. We started all of this really just to bring my husband home from a really stressful job. He worked at a place that was he was really good at what he did, but it was in the prison system, and so it's just a very, as you can imagine, incredibly stressful place to work. And the hours were crazy, and he was always working night shifts. And so, even though we had just had newborn twins, we just wanted more time as a family, that not the crazy schedule. And it was like night shift. He would work for 6 months and then day shift for 6 months. And that's crazy with the family. And so after doing this for a couple of years, we were actually able to make that happen. Yeah.
So take me through like the early stages of this business. And I want to talk a little bit more about the family angle, the homeschool angle. And as we're recording this too, we're kind of right in what I believe is the middle of the the coronavirus scare. Like, how has that impacted business life, homeschooling? Right, we're kind
Yeah.
of in the middle of that season where that's in the news, and so those are the things I want to tackle. But let's start with the business side of the story. Like, how did you guys start, and how long ago was that? And share any numbers you're comfortable with.
I we actually started out, it was in 2015, and I actually knew Ryan Rieger since we were kids. And so just in a conversation somehow along the way with him, he started talking about what he did. And of course that just piqued my interest of, wait a minute, there's a way out, because my husband was working his job, and it was a very good job, and it was good pay, and we were able to be home with I was able to be a stay-at-home mom with my kids, and we wanted something different, but we didn't know what that looked like. There's not a lot of jobs that you can be a stay-at-home parent with a lot of kids and be able to pay all the bills. And so it really piqued my interest. And so we kind of just started looking around, didn't really know much about any of this, but jumping in Seller Central, just kind of hoping and guessing. And I'll be honest, first of all, we were starting with twin newborns, so that was crazy, plus 4 older kids. So it was a busy house. My husband was working night shift. So I was trying to squeeze in, research and online arbitrage as best I could, which was really sad. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just, hoping for the best, and thinking, well, the whole copy and paste, and I'm just going to try to wing it and guess and see what I can find. And we found a few things and sent in a few things, but I'll be honest, it really wasn't going very well. And I remember conversations with my husband where we would say, how do people do this for a living? This just seems too hard. This is too overwhelming.
Right.
And honestly, looking back now, I realize I didn't have the resources, the information, and I'm not a big person for tools, but I mean, there are other things that you can do. There are even just being in a community of people that know, here's what has worked for me, or here's what has not worked for me. We weren't really in that. And we just touched our toes in the waters and didn't know a lot about that. And then the Legends community began, and I was there at the very beginning of that. I remember a conversation with Danny Stock and Ryan Rieger early on, before the Legends even became what it is now. And just little things that I learned in there about, reverse sourcing and other things. And it completely transformed our business. When we first started, I remember going in, and if for any of you that have done retail arbitrage, this is going to be funny to you. I remember going into Walmart, and we would be in there for an hour or longer and leave with nothing and think, I don't know how people do this. So we stopped sourcing Walmart, of all places. We thought there must not be anything here we can sell. Nothing at Walmart.
Right.
And now I can go in there, and using the information, reverse sourcing, the replens, all the stuff that's taught here. These were all things that I had learned, maybe not those words, but I had learned those tactics, those methods early on. And so now I can go in there, just walk in a store and fill up multiple carts in less than an hour, and so I'm not even thinking about it. I do that now. I actually source with all 6 of my kids. Anytime I do RA, it's me and all of them. We go in with a list and fill up the carts, and know all of these are all profitable items, and I don't even have to think about it. And it's a ironic twist for us, because going into Walmart at some point saying, there's nothing here. And now, on the other side of that, seeing that there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's just knowing, what's worked for other people, what hasn't worked for other people, and being a part of a community that can encourage you to not stop and to not just say, well, never going to shop here again. I mean, and maybe there are places, if you're doing arbitrage, that may be better than others, but it's just funny. We really struggled in Walmart, of all places. And now that's one of our easiest places to find things.
I think a lot of people start there. They get a little overwhelmed trying it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And then they realize there's a lot of golden nuggets right under their nose.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you're primarily still retail arbitrage, online shopping, or?
I do mostly arbitrage. Yeah. With the replens, it's just been an easy process for us. Mm-hmm. I could just have a list of things. I have switched over to a lot more online arbitrage just for convenience.
Sure.
I have a huge blessing of just a local place that does all of our prep for us. So retail
Mm,
and online. So I just drop things off and I don't have to deal with any of that now, which is absolutely wonderful to be able to have that, but we don't have all of that ourselves to do.
that's
So
that's phenomenal. Well, you're doing such a masterful job. I mean, just with 6 kids, it's hard for me to even imagine. Now we've got our crew. There's 5 of them,
yeah,
but it was when they were smaller. It's hard for me to remember taking them all at the same time through a store with me for a lengthy period of time. So
yeah,
that's pretty incredible. Now I've met your crew and you got some good
yeah,
helpers in the mix, but
yes,
still, uh, that's no joke.
yeah.
And this is how you pay the bills. I mean, this
Yeah.
is your income. You don't have any other job, correct?
I don't have any other jobs. I mean, I do some other things online. I do help other people with their businesses, and I do some other things. But this is the vast majority of
Right.
my income. Is this? Yeah. It's all online. All e-commerce stuff
I know,
is
like
what I
in the
do.
Legends community that you mentioned, you're quite a leader there. You've done some speaking for us, and you've done coaching. The Legends, excuse me, the Legends group. For those who are interested in what that is, you can go to provenamazoncourse.com/legends and see. But it's a little, it's like I call it a break off group from our bigger group. Our bigger group is tens of thousands of people, a big Facebook group, all hanging out. But if you want to get a little more intimate, get to know people who are primarily focused on the most cutting edge creative retail and online sourcing strategies. That's kind of the core of this community, but they have their own events and get togethers. And it's a really cool group. It's kind of
Yeah.
a little break off subgroup and it has its own little culture almost. It's almost a family feel. It's a really cool thing. And I love being there and at the events you guys do. And yeah, so that's Legends. And that those links, all the links we mentioned today, go to silentgym.com and you can see today's episode. You'll see in the show notes all the links. But the other thing you mentioned was Replens, which is a course that's now included in the Proven Amazon course. Hasn't always been called that. We kind of sharpened that up, and Jimmy and Brittany have helped us with that. And that's an incredible course. It's helping a lot of folks. So
Yeah.
you've really reduced your job down to, I'm sure you do some new research as much as you can, but there's a lot of items like you just go buy the same things over and over, either online or retail, same, and you
I
know
do.
about the rate they're going to sell, and
Yep.
they sell on repeat basis. And it's not necessarily just food items, is it?
No, no. I've got a lot of home and kitchen type items. Honestly, I've had clothing items and baby items. I mean, you name the category and you can find a replen in it. It's really just anything that sells repeatedly. So I think sometimes people get caught up in that word of what is this and what does this mean, but it's anything that sells that you can consistently say, yeah, it's going to have similar pricing and it's going to consistently sell. And so like you said, I basically go in with a shopping list when I go to the store and say, this is what we're looking for today. And I do other research, and add new things because there are going to be some things that don't stay there forever, don't sell as well as I would hope they do. But for the most part, it is just going with a shopping list, whether that's online or in store. And it makes it so convenient for me. And with 6 kids in a store, whatever I can do to make it easy
Wow.
is what I do. um, yeah, my kids are awesome too. They really do. They help with things. I think for me, including them in some of that stuff, even if it's just the in store, they
Mhm.
know if you run into them, don't ask them what my replans are because they probably tell you because they know what that stuff is. They're like, hey, mom, look at this. Do we need any more of these? Because they're used to those things. That's how consistent my shopping lists are. They
That's
know what to
incredible.
look
And
for.
how big is that list that you're like? How many items?
Um, I've got consistently over 200 replens.
Okay.
Sometimes it fluctuates a little more, a little less, but I mean, there are things too that maybe I sold 6 months ago that I haven't sold for a little while. And all of a sudden I look back now and I think, wait a minute, hey, that's selling really well again now. So there are things that I go back and look at. And like I said,
That's
everything doesn't last forever, but
that's incredible. And we've had plenty of people in our community that any given week can go out easily in 2 or 3 hours and find 5 to 20 replens,
yep,
right?
yep,
Once you know what you're
yep,
doing.
yep.
And they're everywhere. It is
They are.
such an untapped territory. It's almost comical that there's a significant number of people in the Amazon reseller community who I've been hearing them say this for 20 years because I'm getting old. I've been around a while, but retail arbitrage, shopping in retail stores, that's going away. It's dying. And you're just another example. I mean, here's a
Yep.
mom,
Yep.
only income for her family is a couple hundred replen products that you've gone out and found, and you kind of buy them on a repeat basis. That's primarily how you pay the bills. And then you do some
It
coaching
really
with
is.
us, you do some other course content creation and stuff, but the majority of your income is
Mhm.
a couple hundred replen items that you found.
Yep. Yep.
That's incredible.
And I mean, honestly, that's for me. It's because I have 6 kids and I have a very busy, full just life with that. And the homeschooling, I could easily, if it was just me myself, I could go out and get tons more in a weekend. So for me, I'm okay with that. I'm content with that for now, and I slowly work that up.
Hmm.
But there's so much more out there. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of things out there. Really, even just at Walmart, there are hundreds and hundreds more that I know are there.
Yeah.
I just haven't set aside the time to add those yet. But every time I go in, I try to add at least a handful of new items every shipment, if possible.
And for the skeptic who's maybe doing the math in their head and saying, well, thousands of people listen to this show, so this is going to get saturated at some point. Really, it's not ever going to happen because seasonal changes, seasonal differences at different, and we're just talking Walmart, guys. There's people who in our community, they never set foot in a Walmart. They think Walmart people are crazy because there's so much opportunity. We've got a guy who by himself is doing 7 figures. He only, I don't want to say only, 85, 90% of it's Target. He
Yeah,
never goes to Walmart. He's like, no,
yeah.
all the good stuff's at Target. And then you got people, they only hit the regional retail places.
I've got a couple
And-
regional things that I'll do to add on to
right.
that, but a lot of mine really is just Walmart because it's easy.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just so easy and
and
it's
they're
so easy.
everywhere.
But I just want to make sure that people realize how expansive it is.
Yes, it is.
As new products come in, constantly stuff goes out of stock,
Yeah,
and some of the secret sauce in there is, hey, you notice something that was selling well is no longer on the shelf at Walmart. Well, you call up the distributor, the wholesaler, you build a reputation or
exactly.
build a relationship there. Now you got a new line right there. You encourage them. We even had people in our community buy out products that weren't doing, the retailer or the distributor didn't think it was doing real well, so they kind of shelved them and stopped distributing them. We know they're doing well on Amazon. It's like, hey, I'll buy all those. I'll buy it. I'll buy up all of it.
There's
In some
so
cases, it
much
even sits
opportunity.
right in the warehouse where it stays there, and they ship it to Amazon for them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of opportunities that this leads to. So I didn't want anyone to think, well, okay, this is a Walmart thing. No,
No,
way more expansive than that.
I was talking to a friend of mine that I was kind of showing them, hey, this is what I do, just kind of give them a little intro because they're interested in this, and walking through some of this with them. And so they'll send me little pictures every once in a while. What do you think about this item? Is this a good item? And I'm looking, thinking, I don't think I've even walked in that part of the store, So for me to share what I know with someone else is not a big deal to me. They're not competition to me. I love to be able to help another family, serve them, that they can do this to provide, you know, supplemental income or whatever it is for their family. And they're finding things that I would have never even found. I mean, there's so much opportunity out there. It's not anywhere near saturation.
No, we're not even. That's not even on the horizon.
No.
Um, like I say all the time, I probably say it at least once every other episode. Only 10% of retail in the United States is online. 90% of
So
retail
crazy.
shopping in the United States. Now, I think we're swinging, and this might be a good segue to our next topic. I think that 10% number is going to take one of its biggest swings that it's ever taken into the online shopping territory. And especially as we're sitting here in March 2020, if you're listening to this well after that time, go back and read the headlines because everybody was starting to shop online. March 2020, I think, is going to be this like circle it on the calendar moment in the history of internet retail because people are staying home. I think the world's kind of locked down right now. Everyone's nervous about this corona thing, and online shopping is exploding.
Yes.
But it's still, as of the most recent government report in the United States, it's only 10% of retail. That means, to the point I was going to make first before we start talking virus, is online has so much room to grow.
Yeah.
There's so much room for so many more people to jump into this with new products and new trends constantly coming on the scene, products expiring on the shelf that the retailer no longer carries, but people are still looking for, or they move to a new
Yes.
part of the world, a new part of the country. They can't find it anymore. We're the ones that fill that gap. And
Mhm.
the opportunity is unlimited. just
Yep.
unlimited. Anybody, really anybody can do this. I mean, it is such a, people say that it's kind of like the gold rush, except there's gold for everybody. I mean, it's once you have the skills, it's not the
Yes.
people who are selling the shovels and picks. We've all heard that. They're the only ones making, no, we've got thousands of success stories in our community.
Yes. Yes.
And we're teaching great people like you and thousands of others, and you've helped so many how to do this business every day. And Amazon itself says, hey, we need these third-party sellers to source product for us. And I'm thinking the trend starting March 2020, a whole lot of people, especially in the older demographics, maybe the ones who've never shopped online before,
Yeah.
they're going to figure it out because this has been a scary time for them. And our prayers go out to all who are affected, of course, right now by this situation, be it the panic or the actual virus itself, both of which are kind of scary to watch unfold in some
Yes.
regards. But where do you want to go from there? Because I think I've opened up a few new topics, and let's talk through it.
Yeah, I think that people look for the convenience of all this, and I think there is so much out there. Not even coming from my end of this has become our the main income for our family, but people out there looking for stuff. I'll be honest, right now, you know, I'm looking around and I'm thinking there's things that I can't find when I go into a store, whatever that may be, and so we're able to provide that for them. And I think that it is just unlimited possibility from both ends, as a seller and as a buyer. When you can't find things, that's the place you go. I mean, if you think about it, there's anything. We sell strange stuff year round, holiday things and things you wouldn't think that people would want. And I always think that that's strange and it doesn't make any sense to me. But at the same time, if you think about, and I would really like one of these, or I'm out of this and I can't find it anywhere, what's the first place you think? You think online. Most of the time, honestly, you think Amazon. And so I know that, like you said, it's going to be even more so going from this point in this season, especially. But potentially from this point forward, people are going to be looking for different things. People are going to be looking for those conveniences to be able to be in their home, do whatever life they can do, but having the things come to them. And so if we can provide that service, I love being able to do that.
I would argue it's one of the more stable income opportunities that you could possibly be in,
Right now,
because
especially, yes.
right now, and then leading into the future, those of us who
Yes.
know how to keep the world working
Yes.
using the internet, keep
Yes.
product flowing off the shelf. There's a lot of people out there that have no idea how to get their product onto Amazon,
Yeah.
or they have extra bulk product that if you just move it online, suddenly it becomes valuable, but they don't know how to do these things.
Yeah.
And that branches into so many new relationships and partnerships and opportunities, just
Mhm.
such an abundant world of opportunity for those of us who are in. And by no means, I like to emphasize all the time, by no means is this saturated. We welcome new sellers. We want you. I mean, we're in the middle right now, honey, of having an incredible, just the past 6-8 weeks leading into this week, all kinds of product just exploding. And we're looking at where we're sourcing these products from. It's people in this community.
Yeah.
One person has the product, another person has the skill, another person has the marketing, these creative partnerships that keep popping up. And everybody kind of stays in their lane. And we're all making a lot of money together, serving customers well. It's an incredible community. And I think that's an important point for us to emphasize as well, especially right now when we can kind of feel isolated. Well, us as internet marketers, we're kind of used to that. You know, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of people. Let me just paint a scenario that's, that this is the reality for a lot of people as we're sitting here in the middle of March 2020. A, a lot of stuff's been canceled, trips and big sporting events and all this. A lot of people are being told, hey, work from home, or they're being told, we don't need you right now. There's not much work.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are very nervous about, where's that income going to come from the next couple months or for the foreseeable future. What does the future hold? And I would argue again that now's a great time to launch into this type of business arrangement. Would
Absolutely.
you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think you brought up something that made me think that you can hear my story and you can listen to a lot of these other stories, these other podcasts, and you can think, well, I don't want to do that, or I wouldn't I don't want to go in Walmart, or I don't want to take my kids shopping, or whatever that may be, but to realize the opportunity is not just this. There is a wealth of opportunity, the relationships that are built. Maybe there's a different aspect of this that clicks with you of, wow, I'd really like to do that. Or, you know what, I have this area of expertise I could bring to the table. There's so many different things. And I think right now, the term being social distancing and, disconnecting from people, I think that we are already so used to a lot of the things we do are online, but we have managed to still be social. Maybe it's not always in person. We happen to be in the same state, but most people that are on a lot of these podcasts and things, they're all over the world. This is something you can do from anywhere, but because we have the internet, the incredible power of the internet and so many online things, we don't have to be distant socially in all aspects, and just continuing to connect with other people. There's going to be a lot more opportunity besides just the arbitrage, besides just selling stuff on Amazon, whatever that looks like. There's
That's
so
right.
much of that.
Whenever people connect, there's opportunity, there's relationship and opportunity. I mean,
Yes.
we both went through the same book study. You actually came to my house a few times and for book study on business secrets from the Bible. And that's one of the core secrets that the Hebrews have understood for thousands of years is if you get people together and interacting and building relationships, money just kind of results. And the economic benefit just kind of happens. It's natural. They serve each other in mutually beneficial ways. One guy's the butcher and he makes the meat, and the other guy does this. And the other guy, you each specialize.
Exactly.
So they're exchanging goods, and money makes it possible for that to happen without it having to be a barter. And so suddenly everyone finds themselves wealthier, just kind of doing what they're good at. And that's the beauty of it. Well, so you enter into a virtual community like what we have, and that same type of thing happens just by hanging out. The opportunities drop and present themselves. And we have people in our community, they're not selling any physical product of their own. They've just partnered up with other people who have products that don't have the time. We've got plenty of that going on in our community where someone has a product, someone else helps manage the, Amazon process. And it's a zero risk proposition for everybody involved. It's a really beautiful thing. So plenty of opportunity. I love that we're very positive and very bullish on the future of online selling, especially if you plug into a community. So if maybe you just want to take a little baby step, get into our community, check it out a little bit, hang out with some of the great people, and just see what happens next. Listen to a few podcast episodes. And well, I want to hear your perspective on, something that strikes me is I'm thinking there's probably a lot of single moms out there, with, taking care of doing life themselves right now with some kids in tow, kind of a little nervous about the economic future, especially in light of what we've got going on right now. But for those watching the video, you can see Honey, like she's just not nervous. I mean, it's not out of, we're ignoring the headlines. Like we see everything that's going on. We were talking before we started recording, like we've seen everything we've seen both sides of the bell curve. People over here are saying, it's nothing. The people over here saying end of the world apocalypse. Well, it's probably neither one of those. It's somewhere in between, but you're just not nervous. You're not scared. I just want to hear in your own words, why is that? Where's that come from?
I'll be honest, I'm in a unique situation now. And some people see this and hear this, and some people already know this. But for the past year, my husband actually hasn't been living with us. I love my husband. You will never hear me say anything bad about him. But, we all have struggles in life. And right now he's just going through some things. And so anyway, with that though, I have learned to more so than ever. I've always been a follower of Jesus, and I have learned more so than ever to lean in and to trust him. And so living this whole past year, doing all of this that I'm doing, I have 6 kids that I'm providing for solo with all these e-commerce things, mostly arbitrage right now. I homeschool them. And so living all of this past year like this, with the situation that we're currently in, and the world looking a little different in this March 2020 right now, it doesn't come at me as this big, terrifying, scary thing, because I already know that God has carried me through so much. And so I don't live in fear. I don't live blindly. I'm still, trying to be wise. I'm looking for ways. I think right now what's most exciting for me is because I've been in this position and because I've gone through things that I've seen and watched God carry me through, that I'm in this spot now where I can look and see all the scary things in this world going on around me, and I can come at it instead of thinking, what am I going to do? How are we going to be okay? And being terrified, I can look at it and say, how can I help other people? I know there are people that are struggling. How can I serve them? Um, I'm not a huge 7-figure seller, but I make enough that provides for my family. And for me, that's a tremendous blessing. For me, it is more important to me right now to be able to spend a lot more time with my kids and invest in them and homeschool them and whatever that looks like. So that's been my priority. Yes, pay the bills. Yes, take care of things, but I'm still in a position where I don't have to live in fear that we aren't going to have groceries next week. And so if someone else around me needs that, we're going to go do that.
Well, I love, before we hit the record button today, we were just getting caught up a little bit because we don't see each other all that often, although we're kind of neighbors. How far away from Indy are you? It was a bit of a
I think
drive.
I'm like an hour and a half. So
Hour and a half, yeah.
not too bad, but
It was really cool having you at the house a few times for that Bible study, but that was quite a haul.
yeah.
So I really appreciate that again.
Yeah,
That was a fun study that we got
it
to do with
was.
a
Yeah.
neat group of people. But the thing that occurs to me that I wanted to point out to the listeners is, because I don't know if you'd bring it up yourself if I didn't mention it, but you said the kind of stuff you're talking about in homeschool this week and how you can serve others. You fill us
Yeah.
in on that project. I mean, just to show people where your heart and mind are really at. I'm pretty impressed, I got to tell you. And the source of that kind of attitude is not something you can just dig deep and foster up. That's the point I'm going to make. But tell us, what project are you guys talking about right now at home?
Yeah, so we, seeing all these things and all the schools closing and everything else, you see all these headlines and, everything around you. For us, it's not anything different. It's just normal, mom works from home and we do some arbitrage and we do homeschool. It's not anything abnormal for us.
Right.
But everything around us looks different. And so this week for school, we've been talking about making it a serve week, where we are going to choose to be intentional. And my kids and I are brainstorming. They're all 11 and under at this point. My youngest are 4-year-old twins now. So we get some interesting thoughts and we're still working through a lot of that, but we're looking for ways that we can serve. I know that there are some older people in communities around us that either they can't get out or they're afraid to get out to grocery stores, which I don't blame them. There's a lot of that, just the nervousness. And so if that's something we can do to come bring groceries, that's what we're going to do. It might be those simple things, but I love that we are able to take this week. I'm able to teach my kids to think of others first, to put others first. And I know not everyone would see that as a schooling thing, but that's absolutely, to me, that's vital education. That my kids know that is way more important to me than they check off another number off a worksheet. Not that they don't do other learning. We spend a lot of time, the reading and the math and the science and all those other things. But for this week, we're being intentional to say, how can we serve others? I talked to my pastor last week and we were looking at, saying, hey, if you guys need somebody to come in and do extra cleaning, I got a whole bunch of helper hands that would love to scrub down some whatever needs to be cleaned up. So I'm not really sure exactly what that's going to look like for us this week, but we are in a position where we don't have to sit and hole up in our house and be fearful and scared about everything. And it may not be big, because I know everything right now is kind of starting to shut down. They don't want big groups of people. So it may not be anything big. It may be dropping somebody's prescription off at their door. I don't know what that is. We're still figuring out what we're able to do, but we want to be intentional this week to say, how can we serve others? Because we're okay. We know that we have peace and joy in our home. How can we serve others in this situation and with the time that we have? And so that's our focus this week.
That's something that just, I thank God on a regular basis, almost said daily, but I want to be 100% honest in my statement, at least a handful of times per week, that part of what I get to do for a living is spend time with people who no one would hold it against them if they just kind of said, you know what, world, I'm in a rough situation and I need a bunch of people that couldn't just kind of take care of me right now because I'm going through some stuff. But instead, through choice and through fortitude and through, in your case, and many cases of others guests we've had on this show, a strong spiritual strong walk with the Lord, they've been able to put themselves in a position where they're having conversations like what you just described that are like, hey, the world's a little crazy right now. Let's find a new, interesting way to serve others
Yeah.
because we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And I would I'm going to up the ante a little bit on what you just said, where, like, hey, we're doing the math and those other things too. And I know I think you'd agree with me. This is far more important of an opportunity to
Absolutely.
instill these kind of
Yes.
thought processes and values, this other oriented thinking into your kids. I mean, you're
Yeah.
creating some powerful, we don't raise kids, we raise adults, right?
Yeah.
We're raising
Yeah.
adults. They'll
Yeah.
get there someday. That's what we're raising. And you're creating some incredible future adults that are going to contribute and serve and love in some big ways. One of the things that this lifestyle allowed us to do when I first left the corporate world was it was every Wednesday there for probably 3 or 4 years. And my wife, Andrea, has now picked up the tradition and they do it every Monday now, is go to a nursing home and just spend time, find a creative way to, because we can,
I
find
love
a
that.
creative way to hang
Yeah.
out, have conversations. There's no healthier
Yeah.
environment in the world for someone who's at that stage of life than to have kids around. They just light
Yes.
up. They love kids.
Yeah.
And the kids get to learn great lessons about
Yes.
treating someone with respect, even though they're maybe a little grumpy. Maybe even they look a little kind of sick. Maybe they're not the most pleasant person to look at because of some of the conditions they have. But you coach them and you teach them through. And what you wind up with is these incredible, teams that can
Yes.
just be comfortable in any environment and can engage, and they don't look the other way if someone doesn't look right. They look them in the eye and treat them like a human because that's what they're dealing with, right? So that
Exactly.
we have the time as homeschooling families
Mhm.
and as internet-based entrepreneurs, the time and the flexibility, that's how we're using it. Now, plenty of
Yes.
people will say, well, the single guys is like, I just want to get as much money as I can and get the car and get the girls and get the, like, okay, you can make your money and do your thing. But
Yeah.
when you start shaping that next generation, you're talking families, like, the way it resonates with us,
Yeah.
that's part of the most valuable part of this process.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people out there right now, as we're having this conversation, they're kind of playing around with homeschool for the first time,
Yes.
right? So,
Intentionally or not. Yes.
right, some of them were drug into it,
Yeah.
and we're saying, hey, have a little fun with it, be a little creative, just
Yeah.
take this time and just see how it feels a few weeks from now. If maybe you've launched a side business, involved the kids in your life in a new way,
Yeah.
take care of some people that maybe you otherwise would have kind of not paid attention to, and just see what that feels. And then imagine life where
Yeah.
if that was your daily routine.
Yeah.
Because there's people out here that get to do that, like Honey. That's what our family life is like, very
Yeah.
flexible. Um, yeah, so this isn't the, talk everybody into homeschool episode of the Silent Sales Machine Radio. But at the same time, hey, that's who you're talking to. And
Yes.
you hear me bring it up all the time and how big a fan we are and the results we're getting. And there's an episode I had with my 20-year-old son, Trey, and that's where your kids are heading, Honeywoods. They're just going to
Yes.
think
Yeah.
like entrepreneurs,
Yes.
and they're going to think relationally, and the opportunities that open up to them as a result, regardless if they get a B minus in math,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
going to have so many great
Yeah.
opportunities
My
because of
kids are
their.
very social, very
Mhm.
friendly. They are, I
I
love
hung
when you
out
were
with them.
talking.
They're incredible.
They
Just
are really
incredible.
good kids. They they just love people. And so I mean, we go to stores and we're sourcing and they are like they know the cashiers and they're talking to them and ask them about their week. And we go to church. And I loved how you were talking about the at the nursing homes and my kids adore. It's like they have like 100 grandparents at church on Sundays. They will just go and hug them and talk to them. And I love being able to see those things in their life and give them those opportunities. It really can be anywhere, but I love the flexibility of our lifestyle that we can do that. And wherever we go and whatever we're doing, they're connecting. They're learning how to love others, how to serve others. And like you said, to me, that has so much more value than just the get this assignment done kind of things.
Yeah. The academic education, if you will, right? Which, you can pick up in a book. And, um, there's something, academics, I'm not blowing them off,
No,
education
no,
from that
yeah,
vantage point, but without that moral foundation, you can, you can create a well-educated, fairly moral corrupt person. And I would argue that's kind of a
yeah,
failure. So
yeah,
these moral foundations that we're able to build into our kids with the flexibility of time we have, because it takes time to build character like that. And you've got to be very intentional with circumstances you put them in and how you challenge them. I remember we used to have plenty of conversations with our kids before we'd go into any given social situation. And we'd run through some scenarios. And one of our children in particular, he wouldn't mind if I pointed it out, but there's no need to. But we'd say, okay, I'm going to play the role right now of person X because last time you interacted with them didn't go too well. You hid
I
behind
love that.
mommy's leg and you looked
Yep.
at the ground.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, okay, I'm person X now. And they're like, no,
Yes.
you're not. I'm like, yeah, I am. You treat me. So, come
Yes.
up. What are you going to do? And they try and they mess up and they try. And this
Yep.
is us just getting ready for, and then
Yep.
we actually get to this social engagement to
Yes.
church or the restaurant or whatever.
Yep.
Now it's go time. And they're so proud when they pull it off. Like,
Yes.
you get to practice and do those things with your kids. The typical school doesn't do that stuff, so do that with the kids while you have the time.
My oldest, the youngest of my oldest four is actually, he's still only 6, so he's still kind of little, but my oldest 4 actually sit with me in church when we go to church on Sundays. And it's not a normal thing, but that's just what works for our family. And that's what we've chosen for our family. And I am constantly having people come up and tell me, wow, your kids are really well behaved, and, how they carry themselves, and how polite, respectful they are to sit during the service and whatever. And it's just normal for us. And I remember talking to someone the other week and saying, I think sometimes we almost set the bar too low for kids, thinking this is too hard for them or there's no way they could do this, but slowly walking them through and giving them the opportunity to do that. And yes, they're going to mess up. Oh my goodness. My kids have rough days. I know your kids have had rough days. Everybody does, but it's learning through those, and it's teaching them and giving them opportunities. Whatever that is, that applies with kids, that applies with business. You're going to mess up. There's going to be bumps along the way, but you learn and you grow from them. And I think that's what's so important, is to rise to that opportunity and not just keep lowering the expectations there.
And for the listeners today who are thinking, wow, I thought this was a e-commerce podcast. Well, you know what? It is. And because the whole world right now is homeschooling.
Yes.
I mean, literally the whole world is homeschooling this week. If we're going to be an e-commerce community that teaches people how to do that, well, everyone with kids is figuring out how to do life and kids at the same time. And we're saying, hey, that's our normal. So it can be done. I mean, that's what we do every day. And it works. Your kids at a younger stage, my whole crew, you got to add about 10 to the whole group. And you got my crew, a slightly smaller crew, but add 10 years to all of them. So we got, you're at one end of the age experience. I'm kind of 10 years plus. And we're saying, hey, it works. Yeah. It cranks out some incredible young people, some great teens, some great young people that can, look their elders in the eye and have a good handshake, have a good conversation and be polite, sit with you in church or sit with you at a restaurant without causing a scene. Go to a store without pulling stuff off the shelf. You've been behind those awkward, and I remember my kids the kids your age when they were, and they would see someone acting like that and they'd be embarrassed for them. Like, Mommy, I want the candy bar, put it in the cart, put it on
Mine
the belt.
Are the same way.
I told you no. And they start throwing a fit and the kid wins inevitably, just to keep the peace. And you're like, oh my gosh, the poor mom, that poor kid, and your kids are like, Mommy, that's not right, is it?
Yeah.
Because we've had the time.
Yes, I was going to say that's what it is. That key right there is what this whole e-commerce world has provided for me is time that I can use that, like you said, if I want to go and make billions and millions and have fancy cars and all that, if that's what I choose with my time, then that's okay. But I choose to spend that time investing in my kids, investing in my family, yes, still working on business. But it looks different. And so I have the time that I can stop and take those moments and use those teachable moments. And I'm not rushed because I only have, a little bit of time at the end of my workday. I have the time to invest in them. And that's the beauty of this whole e-commerce world. I'm not working, 40, 60 hours a week to be able to pay my bills. I'm able to squeeze it in weird times if I need to. Sometimes it's after they go to bed. Sometimes it's early in the morning, or, when they're having a little bit of downtime or whatever. It looks different. And I've got to be flexible with that, but I have the time to be able to spend with my kids. And to me, that's invaluable. That's just been a huge, huge blessing for my family that I have the opportunity that I don't have to leave them because I don't want to. I don't have to leave them all day, every day. I get to spend that time with them. And so that the whole e-commerce world is just so much opportunity for that you get more time. And you get to choose it how you want. This is how I'm choosing to spend mine.
And there may be a few listeners who are thinking to themselves, well, if I had a bunch of extra time, that's not how I'd spend it. That's cool. We're just saying, if you do this right, you can have a nice, solid, steady income have that flexibility and freedom to become that person you'd like to be, help shape your kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're both pro homeschool. And as a reminder, if you're listening to this well after March 2020, the whole world's kind of homeschooling right now. So bear with us while we just kind of stand on that soapbox for a minute and say, yeah, you can do this. Maybe when the schools open back up, you're one of those parents that's thinking, do I just keep rolling with this? We're saying, yeah, you kind of can. They're your kids. Their education is your responsibility anyway. So if you're able to do it from home, put your values into those kids. And not everyone who listens to this has kids of that age, and we understand that. But hopefully, you know the heart behind this, and we're saying, hey, you can have that flexibility,
Yeah.
that lifestyle that you want, without having to work 60 hours a week or even 40 hours a week to get it, and have a lot of time left in your week. And you're proof, Honey Woods. You are proof that this works.
Yeah.
And I love that you've just destroyed a bunch of people's excuses today on all kinds of things. We never know what's going to speak to someone's heart when they listen to an episode like this. But what other things would you like to share with the listeners? Because I know you've heard a few podcast episodes. You kind of know how we roll. Like, are there any tips or strategies or anything that pops into your head? Any encouragement for anyone as we start to wrap up this episode?
I think the biggest things for me really is just the attitude to not quit, because you are going to have rough moments. You're going to have unexpected things that happen. That's life in general. But I mean, even in this business, there's going to be things that happen that you don't expect. And going into it with a mindset of having the end goal in mind. For me, it's still a priority that I want to be able to pay my bills and be home with my kids. And so if I keep that in mind, as that's a big part of why I'm doing this, then it gives me that motivation when there's a rough day or there's some issue that comes up, that I don't just shut down and quit and say, this is never going to work for me. So just that mindset of knowing why you're doing it, so you don't get stuck and you don't quit. And I do have to say, I have to throw this in there too, and this is a whole other aspect, but find ways to outsource. That may be as simple as, your kids helping with the dishes more. It may not even be business related. I know, like last year I found somebody and paid somebody to help mow our property. I mean, there's so many different things you can do, but realizing that if you want your business to grow, you cannot do it all on your own. Or it's not going to get very big if you do. I mean, I guess you technically can, but your business is only going to grow to a certain point if you're trying to do it all on your own. Us being able to outsource our prep and other things we do, me teaching my kids how to do certain things around the house. I'm not doing every single thing for every one of my children all day. Teaching them how to do things and take responsibility for things, outsourcing things that I can, that may look like a VA, it may look like a prep center, might be somebody coming and helping you out with something. But outsourcing has been key for me too, because this is not, as much as, yes, this is what I do, it's not all just me doing all of it by myself either.
Right.
So,
well, and as it's occurring to me too, as a testament to your ability to manage, to outsource, you mentioned your kids, ages 3 to 11. And for the listener who may not be aware of this, let me brag on you for just a moment. When we started this, we're coming up on an hour now because we talked for a bit before we started the episode. They're self-contained right now.
They're
I
playing with
imagine the older
Play-Doh.
ones are in charge of the younger. Now, at any given moment, one of them could come running in with,
you
a
never
bumped
know.
elbow or something. Well, that is the reality that you've been able to build. And I would actually love if they came running in and had some surprise for us, but they're not. They're self-entertaining right now and keeping themselves busy. And I'm not sure what they're doing exactly. You mentioned something about some Play-Doh.
Yes. For now, they're entertained with Play-Doh. So
that's right. Well, great job. Great job. Well, this episode has been a lot of fun for me. I hope it's been as fun for you, honey, as well.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. And I just feel like this is the kind of thing I'd love that I get to do this for a living. We could go another hour, but I want to serve our listeners well and bring this episode in for a landing. And if you have questions for us, Honey's one of the great moderators in our group. She's very active in Legends, which we mentioned earlier. She's always in the My Silent Team Facebook group, which is completely free. And you can jump in there, ask questions. There's a lot of homeschool families in our community too, if you happen to have a question on one of those topics. But we would be honored to help you out and answer any questions that have resulted in your mind today as a result of listening to this episode. And Let me just let you know that this is difficult times that we're in. We're recording this in the middle of March 2020. I mean, the stock market has dropped, 30% the past few weeks, and people are nervous and scared, and jobs and all this. But we're honestly just not scared. And it's not because we're misinformed. It's because we have the Prince of Peace. That's who we refer to our Savior as, the Prince of Peace. So if you're not walking daily with the Prince of Peace, man, read up on it. Find out who that is, and pick up a copy of a Bible. Talk to someone who believes in that message, and start a walk. Now's a good time to do it, because there's some things you can control and some things you can't. But Honey and I serve, and my family and her family, we serve a God that's in control of everything.
Absolutely.
So take that peace with you and know that there is huge opportunity. And I fully believe that, I don't know if it's a matter of weeks or a few months, but we're going to be on the other side of this, and it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
I think we've learned some good lessons as a nation and as a world, even as we go through this. So I'm very optimistic just from that vantage point, let alone having a God who's in control.
Yes.
We're blessed. So, honey, what a great guest, just a perfect guest for this episode. And it was an honor to spend some time with you today. And to the business building warriors out there who've enjoyed this episode, God bless you. We're praying for you. We're in your corner. We love serving you. We love seeing you succeed. Our team is here standing by, ready to help answer questions that you have, welcome you into this community. Come hang out, as there's nothing else like it online. So while you're social distancing, don't social distance yourself too far from our Facebook group. Hang out with us, okay? And we'll have another episode like this again with you real soon. Thanks to our guest, Honey Woods. You did a great job.
Thank you.
And we'll have another episode for you real soon.